You are absolutely useless, Addison. I have no idea what my son ever saw in you." The words sliced through the warmth of the Christmas dinner like a blade through wrapping paper. I sat frozen at the elegantly decorated table in my mother-in-law's dining room, my fork suspended halfway to my mouth, green beans growing cold on the tines. The chandelier above us cast a soft golden glow that suddenly felt harsh and exposing. Judith sat at the head of the table, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her pearl necklace gleaming against her burgundy sweater. She had just finished criticizing the pie I had spent 4 hours baking from scratch, calling it dry and flavorless in front of everyone. When I had quietly mentioned that it was my grandmother's recipe and perhaps just different from what she was used to, she had unleashed those devastating words. "My name is Addison, and I am 32 years old. For the past 5 years, I have been married to Tyler, who sat beside me at that table, silent as a stone." I turned to him, expecting him to say something, anything, to defend me. Instead, he continued cutting his ham as though his mother had simply commented on the weather. "Tyler," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Did you hear what your mother just said to me?" He sighed heavily, the kind of sigh that suggested I was the problem for bringing it up. "Addison, please. It is Christmas. Can we not do this?" "Do what?" I asked, my heart beginning to pound. "Ask you to acknowledge that your mother just called me useless?" Judith scoffed from across the table. "Oh, here she goes. Always the victim. Tyler, I warned you about marrying a woman who cannot take even the slightest criticism." I felt my face flush hot with a combination of embarrassment and rising anger. Around the table sat Tyler's Aunt Patricia, his cousin Bradley, and his wife Megan, and his father Howard, who was studiously avoiding eye contact with everyone by examining his mashed potatoes as though they contained the secrets of the universe. "Judith, that was not criticism," I said, finding my voice. "Criticism would be saying the pie was too sweet or the crust was overworked. Calling me useless is an insult, and I will not sit here and pretend otherwise." The room went silent. Tyler's fork clattered against his plate, and he turned to look at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was cold, almost hostile. "Addison, do not speak to my mother that way," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Tyler, she just called me useless in front of your entire family." "She is entitled to her opinion," he replied, "and frankly, if you cannot handle being around my family without causing drama, maybe you should leave." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him, searching his face for any trace of the man I had married, the man who had promised to love and protect me. I found nothing but cold dismissal. "You want me to leave?" I asked, my voice shaking. "If you cannot respect my mother, yes. Go cool off somewhere. Come back when you are ready to apologize." Apologize. He wanted me to apologize, to the woman who had just humiliated me in front of everyone. I looked around the table one more time. Patricia was examining her napkin. Bradley was whispering something to Megan. Howard continued his intense study of his dinner plate. And Judith was smiling. It was small and subtle, but unmistakable. She had won, and she knew it. Something inside me shifted. It was not a dramatic crack or a sudden explosion. It was quieter than that, like a door that had been slowly closing for years finally clicking shut. I realized in that moment that I had been fighting a battle I could never win. Tyler would always choose his mother over me. He had proven it countless times before, and he was proving it again now. I set my napkin on the table and stood up slowly. My legs felt unsteady, but I refused to show weakness. I walked to the closet, retrieved my coat, and put it on with deliberate calm. "Addison, where are you going?" Tyler called out, sounding more annoyed than concerned. I turned to look at him one last time. "You told me to leave if I could not respect your mother. So I am leaving. I did not mean for you to actually go. he said, throwing his hands up. "You are being dramatic." "No, Tyler. For once, I am being honest. With myself." I walked out the front door and into the freezing December night. The cold air hit my face like a slap, but it also felt clarifying, like waking up from a long and troubled sleep. Behind me, I heard the door stay closed. No footsteps followed. No voice called out asking me to come back. As I walked to my car, my breath forming clouds in the frigid air, I understood with painful clarity that I was not leaving because of one insult. I was leaving because of 5 years of insults. 5 years of being made to feel small. 5 years of watching my husband choose someone else every single time. The snow had started to fall, soft flakes drifting down through the glow of the streetlights. I sat in my car for a long moment before starting the engine, watching the world turn white through my windshield. And I made a decision. I was not going back. Looking back now, I can see how slowly I had been disappearing inside a life that was never truly mine. The erosion had been so gradual that I had not even noticed it happening until there was barely anything left of the woman I used to be. When I first met Tyler 6 years ago at a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, I was a confident and independent woman working as a senior accountant at Ironwood Forge, a manufacturing company that had been in business for over 70 years. I had my own apartment, my own friends, my own life. Tyler had seemed charming then, attentive and interested in everything I had to say. He told me I was brilliant, beautiful, and unlike any woman he had ever met. We dated for a year before he proposed. During that time, I had only met his mother, Judith, twice. Both occasions had been brief and seemingly pleasant. She had commented on my lovely smile and asked polite questions about my career. I had no idea what was waiting for me once I officially became her daughter-in-law. The changes began subtly after the wedding. Tyler started making small suggestions about how I could be more accommodating to his family. Maybe I could call his mother once a week to check in. Maybe I could learn to cook some of the dishes she enjoyed. Maybe I could be a little less focused on my career and a little more focused on being a good wife. I tried to comply because I loved him and wanted to make our marriage work. But nothing I did was ever enough for Judith. The phone calls were never long enough. The dishes were never quite right. My career success was seen as threatening rather than something to celebrate. "You know, Addison," Judith had said to me at our first family Thanksgiving together, "a truly devoted wife puts her husband's needs above her own ambitions. Tyler deserves someone who will be there for him, not someone climbing some corporate ladder." I had looked at Tyler, expecting him to say something. He had simply shrugged and said, "She has a point, Addison. You have been working late a lot lately." That was the first time I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. But I convinced myself it was an isolated incident. Tyler was just tired from the holiday stress. His mother was from a different generation with different values. We would find our balance. We never did. Over the years, Judith's criticisms became more frequent and more cutting. She disapproved of how I kept our apartment. She disapproved of the friends I spent time with. She disapproved of the fact that we had not yet given her grandchildren, a decision Tyler and I had made together, but which she blamed entirely on me. "That woman is deliberately keeping my son from having a family," I overheard her telling Tyler's Aunt Patricia at a family gathering 2 years into our marriage. "She is too selfish to be a mother." When I confronted Tyler about it later, he accused me of eavesdropping and making trouble. "My mother is just traditional," he said dismissively. "She does not mean anything by it. You are too sensitive." Too sensitive. I heard those words so many times over the years that I started to believe them. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was making mountains out of molehills. Maybe if I just tried harder, smiled more, complained less, everything would be fine. So I tried harder. I threw myself into being the perfect daughter-in-law. I remembered every birthday and anniversary. I sent thoughtful gifts. I offered to help with holiday preparations. I bit my tongue when Judith made snide remarks about my cooking, my housekeeping, my appearance, my worth as a human being. None of it mattered. If anything, my efforts seemed to fuel her contempt. The more I tried to please her, the more she seemed to enjoy tearing me down. Meanwhile, my relationship with Tyler deteriorated in ways I did not fully acknowledge until that Christmas dinner forced me to see the truth. We rarely had conversations anymore. We were two people living parallel lives in the same apartment, passing each other like strangers in a hallway. When we did interact, it was often because Tyler was relaying some complaint from his mother, or asking me to accommodate yet another family demand. My friends noticed the change in me. My best friend Brooke, whom I had known since college, tried to talk to me about it multiple times. "Addison, you are not yourself anymore," she said during lunch a few months before Christmas. "You used to be so full of life. Now you just seem exhausted and defeated. Is everything okay with Tyler?" I gave her the answer I had trained myself to give. "Everything is fine. Marriage is just harder than I expected. We are working through some things." But nothing was fine. I had simply become so accustomed to being diminished that I no longer recognized it as abnormal. I had accepted my role as the family scapegoat, the perpetual disappointment, the woman who would never be good enough no matter how hard she tried. My sister Paige saw it too. She lived across the country in Philadelphia, but called me regularly. The last time we spoke before Christmas, she had been unusually direct. "Addison, listen to me. You deserve better than this. The way Tyler lets his mother treat you is not okay. You need to decide what kind of life you want to live." I had brushed off her concerns, telling her she did not understand the full picture. But her words lingered in my mind, surfacing at unexpected moments. Standing in that freezing December night, watching snow fall on the windshield of my car, I finally understood what Paige had been trying to tell me. I had spent 5 years trying to earn acceptance from people who were never going to give it. I had sacrificed my self-respect, my confidence, and my sense of identity on the altar of a marriage that existed only on paper. Tyler did not love me. He loved the idea of a wife who would submit to his mother's authority and never cause waves. When I failed to be that woman, he chose his mother every single time. As I sat in my car in the bitter cold, I understood with painful clarity that I was not leaving because of one insult at Christmas dinner. I was leaving because of every dismissive comment Tyler had made. Every time he had told me I was too sensitive. Every holiday ruined by Judith's cruelty. Every night I had cried myself to sleep while he slept soundly beside me, unbothered by my pain. I was leaving because I had finally realized that the life I had been living was not a life at all. It was a slow suffocation, and if I did not get out now, there would be nothing left of me to save. I started the car and pulled away from the curb, leaving Judith's house behind me. Through the rearview mirror, I watched the warm lights of the windows grow smaller and smaller until they disappeared entirely. I did not know exactly what I was going to do next. I did not have a detailed plan or a clear destination. All I knew was that I could not go back to the apartment Tyler and I shared and pretend that everything was normal. I could not sleep beside a man who had just chosen his mother over me in front of his entire family. I drove through the snowy streets of Portland, the windshield wipers keeping rhythm with my racing thoughts. Eventually, I found myself in the parking lot of a hotel near the waterfront. It was a modest place, nothing fancy, but it was clean and quiet, and far away from the life I was leaving behind. I checked in and made my way to a small room on the 3rd floor. The bed was neatly made with a floral comforter, and the heater hummed softly in the corner. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself cry. The tears came hard and fast, 5 years of suppressed pain pouring out all at once. I cried for the woman I used to be and the woman I had become. I cried for the marriage I had wanted and the marriage I had gotten. I cried for all the times I had stayed silent when I should have spoken up, and all the times I had accepted treatment that no one should ever accept. But somewhere in the middle of all those tears, something else began to emerge. It was small at first, just a flicker in the darkness. But as the night wore on and my tears subsided, that flicker grew stronger. It was anger, not the explosive, destructive kind. Something quieter and more powerful. A deep and righteous anger at having been treated so poorly for so long. At having been made to feel worthless by people who should have cherished me. At having wasted 5 years of my life trying to earn the love of a man who did not know how to give it. That anger became fuel. It burned away the doubts and the second-guessing that had kept me trapped for years. It illuminated the truth I had been avoiding. I deserved better. I had always deserved better. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was ready to believe it. I did not sleep much that night. My mind was too busy processing everything that had happened and everything that needed to happen next. By the time the winter sun began to rise over Portland, painting the snowy city in shades of pink and gold, I had made a decision. I was not going to go back to Tyler. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever. The marriage was over. It had been over for years. I was simply the last one to admit it. I picked up my phone and saw 3 text messages from Tyler, sent hours apart. The first one, from 11:45 at night, said, "Are you coming back tonight, or being dramatic?" The second, from 1:30 in the morning, "Seriously, Addison, this is ridiculous. Just come home." The third, from 6 in the morning, "Fine. Come home when you calm down. We can talk about this. Come home when you calm down." As though I was the problem. As though my reaction to being called useless and then abandoned by my own husband was the issue that needed addressing. I stared at those messages for a long time, feeling the last vestiges of hope drain away. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what his mother had said or how he had responded. Just more of the same dismissive attitude that had characterized our entire marriage. I put my phone away without responding. There would be time for conversations later, difficult ones. But first, I needed to figure out what my new life was going to look like. And for the first time in 5 years, that thought did not fill me with fear. It filled me with possibility. The hotel room became my sanctuary for the next 48 hours. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did, and spent the time trying to sort through the wreckage of my marriage and my sense of self. Tyler continued to send messages, each one growing progressively more annoyed at my continued absence. "This is getting ridiculous. My mother is upset that you ruined Christmas. Addison, you need to come home and apologize. You are making me look bad. I do not have time for this. I have work tomorrow. Whatever point you are trying to make, consider it made." I read each message with a strange sense of detachment. It was as though I was reading about someone else's marriage, someone else's dysfunctional relationship. The emotional distance was protective, and I welcomed it. On the second day, my phone rang. It was Tyler. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message he left. "Addison, this is beyond childish. I expect you home by tonight. We need to discuss your behavior at my mother's house. I have been very patient, but my patience has limits. Call me back." His patience had limits. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. 5 years of enduring his mother's cruelty, 5 years of being told I was too sensitive and dramatic, and he had the audacity to talk about his patience. But there was nothing funny about any of it. The message just confirmed what I already knew. Tyler was not calling because he was worried about me. He was not calling because he missed me or wanted to work things out. He was calling because I was not doing what he expected, and that inconvenienced him. I thought about all the times I had gone home when I should have stayed away. All the times I had apologized when I had done nothing wrong. All the times I had swallowed my pride and my pain to keep the peace in a household where I was never truly welcome. Not this time. I decided to call Brooke. She answered on the second ring, her voice immediately concerned. "Addison, are you okay? You missed our coffee date yesterday and you did not answer my texts." "I am sorry," I said. And suddenly the tears were threatening again. Something happened at Christmas dinner. I left Tyler's mother's house and I have been at a hotel ever since. What? What happened? I told her everything. The pie, the insult, Tyler's response, the messages. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long moment of silence. "Addison," she finally said, her voice heavy with something I could not quite identify. "I need to tell you something. I should have told you a long time ago, but I did not know how, and I was afraid of hurting you." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "It is about Tyler, and his mother, and the things they say about you when you are not around." I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean?" Brooke took a deep breath. "Do you remember Bradley's birthday party last summer? The one at that restaurant downtown?" "Yes, I remember. I had to leave early because of a work emergency." "Right. Well, after you left, I overheard Judith talking to Tyler. She was saying horrible things about you, Addison, calling you a gold digger, saying you trapped Tyler into marriage, claiming you were deliberately avoiding having children to spite her. Really vicious stuff." My heart was pounding. "What did Tyler say?" Another pause, longer this time. He laughed. He agreed with her. He said, and I am quoting him here, "I know, Mom, but what am I supposed to do? I am stuck with her now." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually had to sit down on the bed because my legs would not support me anymore. "Stuck with me," I repeated numbly. He said he was stuck with me. "I am so sorry, Addison. I wanted to tell you, but every time I tried, I could not find the words. And I kept hoping maybe I had misheard, or maybe it was a one-time thing. But then I started paying attention, and I noticed it happening at other gatherings too. Whenever you were not in the room, they would talk about you, and Tyler never defended you, not once. The room seemed to spin around me. All those years of trying to be good enough, of bending over backward to please people who despised me behind my back. All those times Tyler had told me I was imagining things, that his mother really did like me, that I just needed to try harder. It had all been a lie. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "As far as I can tell, since the beginning. Since before you were even married. Judith never wanted Tyler to marry you. She had someone else in mind for him, some daughter of a family friend. When he chose you instead, she made it her mission to make your life miserable, and Tyler just went along with it. I thought about all the times Judith had been cold to me, all the backhanded compliments and outright insults. I had always assumed she was just difficult, that it was nothing personal. Now I understood it had always been personal. She had hated me from the start, and my husband had known it and done nothing to stop it. "Why did you not tell me sooner?" I asked, not accusingly, just genuinely wanting to understand. "Because I was scared," Brooke admitted. "I was scared you would not believe me, or that you would be angry at me for not speaking up sooner. And honestly, Addison, I was not sure you were ready to hear it. You seemed so determined to make the marriage work. I did not want to be the one to destroy that." "You would not have destroyed anything," I said slowly. "You would have just shown me what was already there, what I refused to see." We talked for another hour. Brooke told me everything she had witnessed over the years, painting a picture of systematic cruelty that left me feeling physically sick. The things Judith had said about me. The way Tyler had participated in the mockery. The jokes they made at my expense when they thought no one who cared about me was listening. By the time we hung up, I was no longer sad. I was furious. A cold, clear fury that burned away any lingering doubt about what I needed to do. Tyler had never defended me, not just at Christmas dinner, but ever. He had spent our entire marriage pretending to be neutral while secretly aligning with his mother against me. Every time he told me I was being too sensitive, every time he accused me of starting drama, he had known exactly what his mother thought of me. He had known, and he had let me continue to humiliate myself trying to earn her approval. The betrayal was staggering. I had trusted this man with my heart, my future, my entire life. And he had been laughing at me behind my back the whole time. I made a decision then, sitting alone in that hotel room with the winter sun streaming through the windows. I was not going to give Tyler the satisfaction of a dramatic confrontation. I was not going to scream or cry or beg for explanations. I was simply going to remove myself from his life completely and permanently. He wanted me to come home when I calmed down? Fine. I would go home. But not to apologize, not to have a conversation, not to give him another chance to make me feel small. I was going home to pack. The apartment was empty when I arrived late that afternoon. Tyler was at work, probably expecting to come home to a chastened and apologetic wife ready to discuss her misbehavior. The thought almost made me smile. I moved through the rooms with a strange sense of detachment, seeing everything with new eyes. This place had never really felt like home to me. Tyler had lived here before we got married, and Judith had helped him decorate it. My contributions had always been minimized or criticized. The throw pillows I loved were tacky. The artwork I wanted to hang did not match. The books I left on the coffee table cluttered up the space. Now I understood why. This was never meant to be my home. It was meant to be a temporary holding cell until Tyler found a way to get rid of me without looking like the bad guy. I started in the bedroom, pulling out the suitcases I had brought into the marriage and filling them with my clothes. I worked quickly but thoroughly, checking drawers and closets for anything I might have missed. Then I moved to the bathroom, gathering my toiletries and the few items that were distinctly mine. The living room took longer. My books, my photographs, the few decorative items that Judith had not managed to banish. I boxed them up carefully, feeling a sense of liberation with each item I removed. I was dismantling a life that had never been mine to begin with. The kitchen was mostly Tyler's domain, filled with the expensive cookware his mother had given us as a wedding gift. I took only the things I had brought into the marriage or purchased myself. A set of mixing bowls from my grandmother, a cast-iron skillet that had belonged to my father, a few cookbooks with worn spines and handwritten notes in the margins. By the time I was finished, the apartment looked noticeably emptier. Not bare exactly, but diminished. Like someone had removed the soul from it, leaving only the bones behind. I called a moving company that offered emergency services and explained my situation. They were expensive but available, and within 3 hours they had arrived to transport my belongings to a storage unit I had rented that morning. I watched them carry box after box down to their truck, feeling lighter with each trip they made. The last thing I did before leaving was remove my wedding ring. I held it in my palm for a long moment, looking at the diamond that had once represented so much hope and possibility. Then I placed it on the kitchen counter where Tyler would be sure to find it. I did not leave a note. There was nothing left to say. I walked out of that apartment for the last time, as the sun was setting over Portland. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, and the air was cold and crisp. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the winter evening, and felt something I had not felt in years. Freedom. The next morning, I woke up in a small rental I had found through a friend of a friend. It was a modest one-bedroom on the east side of the city, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Just mine. No disapproving mother-in-law lurking in the corners, no husband waiting to tell me how I had failed to meet expectations. Just a quiet space where I could begin to figure out who I was without all of that weight pressing down on me. I had spent the previous evening setting up the essentials: a bed from the storage unit, some basic kitchen supplies, a comfortable chair where I could sit and think. The walls were bare, the rooms mostly empty, but that did not bother me. Empty felt like potential. Empty felt like a fresh start. My phone had been buzzing constantly since the previous night. Tyler had come home to find the apartment half cleared, and his wife gone. His messages had progressed rapidly from confusion to anger to something approaching panic. "Where is all your stuff? What is going on? Addison, this is not funny. Call me right now. I am serious. If you do not call me back in the next hour, I am calling the police. My mother is furious. She thinks you have lost your mind. Maybe she is right. Please just tell me where you are. We can work this out." I read each message without responding. There was a part of me, a small and stubborn part, that wanted to engage. That wanted to tell Tyler exactly what I had learned about his betrayal, to make him understand the full extent of the damage he had done. But I knew that would accomplish nothing except giving him the opportunity to make excuses and deflect blame. Tyler was not capable of taking responsibility for his actions. He never had been. Any conversation we had would end with me somehow being the bad guy, the dramatic wife who overreacted to an innocent comment and abandoned her marriage over nothing. So I stayed silent. Let him wonder. Let him stew in the uncertainty. For once, I was not going to make things easy for him. Brooke came over that afternoon with coffee and pastries from my favorite bakery. She had been texting me regularly since our phone call, checking in and offering support. Her presence was a comfort, a reminder that not everyone in my life had betrayed me. "How are you holding up?" she asked, settling into the other end of my secondhand couch. "Better than I expected," I admitted. "It is strange. I thought I would be more devastated. But mostly I just feel relieved." "That makes sense. You have been carrying so much weight for so long. Of course it feels good to set it down." We talked for hours, about Tyler and Judith and all the red flags I had ignored over the years. Brooke was gentle but honest, helping me see patterns I had been too close to recognize. The way Tyler always took his mother's side. The way he made me feel crazy for having normal emotional reactions. The way he had systematically isolated me from my own instincts until I no longer trusted my own judgment. "You know what the worst part is?" I said as the afternoon light began to fade. "I really believed he loved me. I thought if I just tried hard enough, if I was patient enough, eventually things would get better. I wasted 5 years of my life waiting for a change that was never going to come." "It is not wasted," Brooke said firmly. "You learned something. You learned what you do not want, and you learned how strong you are. That is not nothing, Addison." I appreciated her perspective, even if I was not quite ready to embrace it. The wound was still too fresh, the betrayal too raw. But somewhere beneath the pain, I could sense the beginning of something new, a version of myself that was emerging from the ashes of my failed marriage. That evening, after Brooke left, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Addison?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes, this is she. Who is this?" "My name is Catherine. I am an old friend of Tyler's family. We met briefly at a gathering a few years ago, though I doubt you remember me." I did not remember her, but that was not surprising. Tyler's family had so many friends and acquaintances that I had stopped trying to keep track of them all. "I heard about what happened," Catherine continued, "and I wanted to reach out because there is something you should know. Something about Judith and the way she has treated you." My grip tightened on the phone. "I am listening." "Tyler was not Judith's first attempt at controlling her son's marriage," Catherine said. "Before you, there was another woman. Her name was Stephanie. She was Tyler's girlfriend in college, and they were very serious. But Judith did not approve. She launched a campaign to break them up, and eventually she succeeded. Stephanie ended up having a breakdown. She had to leave school and move back home with her parents. I felt cold all over. What happened to her? Last I heard, she recovered and moved on with her life. But it took years. Judith is vicious, Addison. She sees any woman who gets close to Tyler as a threat to her control over him, and Tyler enables her because he is too weak to stand up to her. Why are you telling me this? Catherine paused. Because Judith is already spinning the narrative. She is telling everyone that you abandoned Tyler, that you are mentally unstable, that he is better off without you. I wanted you to know that not everyone believes her. And I wanted you to know that what happened to you was not your fault. You were set up to fail from the beginning. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my new apartment, processing everything Catherine had told me. So I was not the first woman Judith had driven away. There had been others before me, and if Tyler remarried, there would likely be others after. Judith was not just a difficult mother-in-law. She was a calculated predator who systematically destroyed any relationship that threatened her hold on her son. And Tyler knew. He had watched his mother do this before, had seen the devastation she caused, and he had let her do it again. To me. The anger I had been holding at bay came rushing back, stronger than ever. But this time it was different. It was not desperate or chaotic. It was focused and purposeful. I was not going to let Judith control the narrative of my marriage. I was not going to slink away quietly while she told everyone that I was the crazy one. I pulled out my laptop and began to draft an email. It was addressed to several people, including Tyler's Aunt Patricia, his cousin Bradley, and a few family friends whose contact information I had managed to save over the years. The email was not vindictive or bitter. It was factual, almost clinical. I explained that I had left Tyler due to years of emotional abuse, facilitated by his mother and enabled by his silence. I mentioned the Christmas dinner incident, the pattern of cruelty I had endured, and my decision to remove myself from a toxic situation. I did not send it immediately. I saved it as a draft and let it sit overnight. If I still wanted to send it in the morning, I would. But I was not going to make any decisions out of anger. I had spent too much of my marriage being reactive. It was time to be deliberate. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The bed was unfamiliar, and the apartment was bare, but I felt safer than I had in my own home. For the first time in a long time, I went to sleep knowing exactly who I was and what I wanted. Tomorrow, the real work of rebuilding would begin. But for now, I allowed myself to rest in the quiet knowledge that I had finally stopped waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. Tyler came home to an empty apartment on a Wednesday evening, 2 days after Christmas. According to the messages he left on my phone, he had been expecting to find me there, contrite, and ready to apologize. Instead, he found bare walls where my pictures had hung, empty shelves where my books had sat, and a wedding ring lying alone on the kitchen counter. His first voicemail was confused, almost laughable in its naivety. "Addison, where is your stuff? Did you move things to storage or something? Call me." The second was angry. "What the hell is going on? Half the apartment is empty. This is not funny. Call me right now." The third, which came around midnight, was something else entirely. His voice cracked as he spoke, and for the first time since I had known him, Tyler sounded genuinely afraid. "Please, Addison. I do not understand what is happening. Just tell me where you are. We can fix this. Whatever I did, I am sorry. Please." I listened to that message 3 times, searching for something genuine in his words. But all I could hear was panic, not remorse. Tyler was not sorry for how he had treated me. He was sorry that his comfortable life had been disrupted. He was sorry that he would have to explain to his mother why his wife had left. He was sorry for himself. I did not call him back. The next morning, I sent the email I had drafted. I read through it one more time to make sure it was measured and factual. Then I clicked send. Within hours, I started receiving responses. Patricia wrote back expressing shock and sympathy. Bradley called Brooke, who told me he seemed genuinely disturbed by what I had shared. Several family friends responded with support, saying they had always sensed something was wrong but had not known the details. Not everyone believed me, of course. Some people were firmly in Judith's camp and always would be. But enough people listened, enough people reconsidered their assumptions, that the narrative Judith was trying to build began to crumble. Tyler called me 17 times that day. He left messages ranging from pleading to threatening to pleading again. He demanded to know how I could humiliate him in front of his family. He accused me of lying and exaggerating. He swore he had always defended me, that his mother had never said anything truly harmful, that I was blowing everything out of proportion. I responded exactly once, with a single text message. The divorce papers will be coming soon. Please do not contact me again. Then I blocked his number. The days that followed were strange and surreal. I went through the motions of my normal life, going to work, buying groceries, setting up my new apartment. But everything felt different. Lighter. Like I had been carrying a weight I did not even know was there until I finally set it down. Paige flew in from Philadelphia to spend a weekend with me. We talked for hours about everything that had happened, and she helped me see the situation with the clarity that only distance can provide. "You did the right thing," she told me, as we sat together in my small living room, drinking wine and watching the rain fall outside. "I know it does not feel like it yet, but you did. You freed yourself from people who were never going to value you." "I just wish I had done it sooner," I admitted. "I wasted so much time trying to make it work." "You were not wasting time," Paige said gently. "You were learning, and now you know. Now you will never settle for that kind of treatment again." She was right, of course. The experience with Tyler and Judith had taught me something invaluable about my own worth. I had spent 5 years accepting crumbs because I was afraid of being alone. Now I understood that being alone was infinitely better than being with people who made me feel invisible. Tyler did not give up easily. When I blocked his number, he started emailing. When I blocked his email, he showed up at my office. Security had to escort him out after he caused a scene in the lobby, demanding to see me and accusing me of destroying his life. My coworkers were supportive, my boss even more so. They had seen me struggle over the years, even if they had not known the details, and they rallied around me now that the truth was out. One of the senior partners at Ironwood Forge offered me a referral to a family law attorney who specialized in difficult divorces. I accepted gratefully. The divorce proceedings were ugly, but relatively quick. Tyler tried to fight for assets he was not entitled to, tried to paint me as the villain who had abandoned him without cause. But the evidence was on my side. Brooke agreed to testify about what she had witnessed at family gatherings. Catherine provided a written statement about Judith's history of driving away Tyler's romantic partners. Even some of Tyler's own family members, disgusted by what they had learned, offered to speak on my behalf if needed. In the end, Tyler's lawyer advised him to settle. The alternative was a public trial that would expose even more of his and his mother's behavior. Tyler agreed to a fair division of assets, and the marriage was officially dissolved 4 months after that Christmas dinner. Judith, predictably, blamed me for everything. She told anyone who would listen that I had manipulated her son, stolen his money, and abandoned him in his time of need. But her audience was shrinking. Too many people knew the truth now, and her version of events was starting to sound desperate rather than convincing. I heard through the grapevine that Tyler had moved back in with his parents after the divorce. He had apparently fallen apart without someone to take care of him, and Judith had swooped in to resume her role as the primary woman in his life. Some people might have felt sorry for him, trapped under his mother's thumb once again. I was not one of those people. The calls and texts eventually stopped, replaced by a silence that felt like freedom. Tyler faded from my daily thoughts, then from my weekly thoughts, then from my thoughts almost entirely. He became a cautionary tale I told myself when I was tempted to settle for less than I deserved, a reminder of the woman I used to be and never wanted to be again. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I redecorated my apartment with things I actually loved, bright colors and comfortable furniture and art that made me smile. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage. I started running again, something I had given up when Tyler complained that it took too much time away from our relationship. I even adopted a cat, a fluffy orange tabby I named Marmalade, who had been abandoned at a shelter and needed someone to give him a second chance. Work continued to go well. My performance improved dramatically once I was no longer carrying the emotional weight of my marriage. I received a promotion 6 months after the divorce, moving into a senior management position with more responsibility and better compensation. My boss credited my newfound confidence and focus. I credited finally being free to invest in myself. Brooke remained my closest friend, a constant source of support and encouragement. We made a pact to be honest with each other going forward, no matter how uncomfortable the truth might be. She had learned from the Tyler situation, she said, that protecting someone from painful information was not really protecting them at all. A year after I left Tyler, I went on my first date since the divorce. It was awkward and strange, and I spent most of it comparing the man across from me to my ex-husband. But it was also a step forward, proof that I was ready to start thinking about the future instead of just recovering from the past. 2 years later, I met someone who made me forget about Tyler entirely. His name was Jonathan, and he was everything my ex-husband was not. Kind without being weak, supportive without being controlling. He had his own complicated family history, which made him understand mine without needing extensive explanation. When I told Jonathan about my first marriage, he listened without judgment. When I explained my hesitation to get serious, he gave me space without making me feel guilty. When I finally decided I was ready to trust again, he proved worthy of that trust every single day. We got married on a spring afternoon in a small ceremony surrounded by people who actually cared about us. Paige was my maid of honor. Brooke gave a toast. Marmalade supervised from a cozy spot in the corner, unimpressed by human festivities, but willing to tolerate them for extra treats. As for Tyler, I eventually learned that his life had continued its downward trajectory. He went through 2 more relationships after our divorce, both of which ended when the women realized Judith would always come first. He lost his job at the investment firm where he had worked for years, reportedly due to performance issues that some attributed to depression. He was living in his parents' basement the last I heard, approaching 40 with nothing to show for it but a string of failed relationships and a mother who controlled every aspect of his existence. Judith herself suffered consequences she had never anticipated. Her reputation in the community was damaged by the revelations that came out during my divorce proceedings. Several longtime friends quietly distanced themselves, and the social circle she had cultivated for decades began to shrink. She spent her retirement years increasingly isolated, with only Tyler for company, the 2 of them locked in a codependent dance that neither seemed capable of escaping. I took no pleasure in their misfortune. But I would be lying if I said I felt sorry for them. They had built their own prison, brick by brick, and now they were living in it. The cruelty Judith had shown me, the betrayal Tyler had committed, these things had consequences. Not because I sought revenge, but because actions have a way of catching up to people eventually. Looking back now, I can see how that terrible Christmas dinner was actually the beginning of my freedom. When Judith called me useless and Tyler told me to leave, they thought they were putting me in my place. Instead, they released me from a cage I had not even realized I was in. I spent 5 years trying to be someone they would accept. I bent and contorted and diminished myself in ways I am still discovering, all in pursuit of approval that was never going to come. The day I walked out of that dining room was the day I finally stopped asking to be chosen. I chose myself instead, and in the end, that made all the difference. As I sit here now, in a home filled with warmth and love, and the comfortable presence of a husband who sees me clearly and loves me anyway, I can finally appreciate the full arc of my journey. The pain was real. The betrayal was devastating. But what I built from the ashes was stronger and more beautiful than anything I could have imagined during those dark years with Tyler. I do not regret leaving. Not for a single moment. The only thing I regret is not leaving sooner. But even that regret has softened with time. I was not ready until I was ready. The Christmas dinner was simply the moment when everything finally clicked into place, when the accumulated weight of years of mistreatment became impossible to ignore. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, and I am living very well indeed.